Hello. Good morning. Today we have an exciting guest with us. We are going to have Jimmy Moore, who just wrote a book, another book. It honestly, like, this man really amazes me on so many levels. I'm so excited to have you guys get to talk to him and meet him. If I can click the right thing. It won't let me click on it. There we go. Sorry.
Yes, it did.
Hi.
It let you click on it. I could see it.
It was taking, I like clicked on it like 5 times. It was taking a
Oh,
minute.
cool.
There we
Yes.
go. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, hey, hey. What's up, Emily? It's a long time no see, my dear.
Yes, so good. I'm so glad that you reached out to me and that you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
Um, and oh my goodness, this book, One Step Deeper, is phenomenal. Phenomenal. One Step Deeper Journal, The Foundations. Yes. That you wrote with Brittany.
Yes.
And we were going to try and have her here, but it just didn't work out with scheduling.
Yeah, she's at home with her husband, and she only gets her husband like a couple days a week. So I was like, "Girl, I got this. Me and Emily are buds, and so we'll be able to hold down fort."
Awesome, awesome. Well, I just got to tell you, my experience with reading this has been phenomenal. I'm only on day 5. But one of the things that I really like the most is that you gave me enough lines to write the answers, that I felt like I was part. Yes, yes. It wasn't like 3 lines to answer the question. It was enough space because I was able to process, and I was really surprised all the things that you brought out of me as I was
Good.
reading this, and I was just like really inspired.
Emily, that warms my heart because when Brittany and I were writing this book, we put our names on the front cover, Jimmy Moore and Brittany Davis, but I almost wanted to have like a blank here for you to write in a Sharpie your name because really that's what we want. Yes, we wrote the book. We want to instigate thought, but by the time you're done with our book, there's so many lines in here, it's going to be your book. In fact, the back of the book, I haven't said this in any interview yet. The back of the book, we have a going one final step deeper. And we're like, we give you like 12 pages,
Wow.
just kind of, hey, you got more thoughts. We know you're still thinking. At least if we did the book right, you're still thinking by that point. And we want you to just keep going one step deeper. This is not something that's a one and done. It's something you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I like how you gave me permission at the beginning to not rush through this. You
Yes.
know, you gave me permission to like really make it my own, not like something else to check off my list.
Yeah.
And then I was able to take that and go, you know what? I want to go one step deeper today. Like, I want to read through this. I'm, I come from, ADHD and mental illness. And so it's a struggle. So I'll be totally honest. It's a struggle for me to read anything.
Yeah.
And this has been so easy for me because I can read one day and then process it. And then I can go back tomorrow and read the next day.
Well, and we even set it up that way. And you're in the easy pages. The first 10 entries, we purposely went light. You might
Okay.
not felt it's light yet, but wait till you get to the last 10 entries and you'll be like, oh, I wish it was the first 10 again.
Uh,
Because we do, and we built it that way by design, and you'll see that our stories also build in a similar fashion. Because leading into it's 4 sections, each of the 10 entries, we tell a little part of our story. And so the
yes.
first part, you got the light version of both of our stories in that first section, and so you're still in the relatively easy kind, challenging, but you're going to get your head smashed in by the end with so much conviction, challenging. But look, that's what a one step deeper journey is all about. You can't go one step deeper until you challenge core things about yourself. That's why we called this the foundations, is we wanted people to realize there are certain foundational principles and core values of who you are. You've got to figure out who you are. You can't go one step deeper until you go there.
Absolutely. And and I really see and I felt that whenever you said, okay, Brittany's story part one, Jimmy's story part one, I was just like, oh, there's more. Like if there's a part one, then there's a part two. And it really, like I said, at my limited uh, uh capacity, it didn't overwhelm me.
Yes.
Like this has been a very easy book to read. And like I said, I'm only on day five, but it really was easy for me. I didn't feel intimidated. I didn't feel like, oh gosh, I'm never gonna finish this.
Yeah.
I'm like excited for the journey to go with you.
Yes, and that was the whole point. Thank you for all that. That is wonderful feedback. You're lighting my soul, and I know when Brittany watches this on replay, she's going to be like, "Yes, somebody gets it." Because yeah, we battled what to do with our stories because we both have a trauma story that we tell, and so she's like, I don't want to tell the whole story up front. It'll be heavy, and I don't want people to just get overwhelmed right away. And I'm like, well, let's do 4 sections and let's start light and let's build upon it and then encourage people to do it actually over a 40-day period. I mean, we made it a 40-day kickstart to personal growth. Well, we actually want you to do it in 40 days. Could you read the whole book in a day or two? Yeah, you could, but I think you're robbing yourself if you do it.
Yeah, yeah. It takes that time to really go through. And I underlined this one part that spoke to me so much. It says families and communities like to look the other way and cover things up when it comes to abuse in families. They seem to care a lot more about preserving the reputation of the last name by taking the dignity of those with the first name that were abused by making them a sacrificial lamb.
That was my words, and I felt every bit of that as I was thinking that through of everything about my trauma has been, you can't talk about that, Jimmy, because your first name is not as important as the last name. And to thank you, that
Well, and as I was reading it, I was just like, I get to read this as Emily. You
yeah,
know, I it doesn't matter what my last name is. I'm gonna cry because of my mental illness, I have so many people in my family that just want to sweep it under the rug and just act like it never happened, and even still have me identify as a mentally ill person.
yeah.
But when I read this, I was able to just dive in as Emily. It didn't matter what my last name was. It mattered who I am. And I swear I felt so connected with you and Brittany through this whole process through your words.
God, that is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Dang it, Brittany's gonna hate she's not here around.
Well, we'll have to do another one with Brittany.
Yes, yes.
And honestly, this has been probably a really fun experience for you, because again, in here it says including the books that you've written, including 7 with major publishers, and 3 of them became international bestsellers. You've written 10 books in all. What has this? Yes, 10 books in all. And this has been a little bit different genre. So, what has this experience been like compared to your experience before writing books?
Well, every book I've done before, One Step Deeper, Journal of the Foundations, has been about health, nutrition, fasting, cholesterol. I mean, I've run the gamut of all the physical health type of things. I feel like we've been very derelict in the greater health community, not putting more emphasis on mental health. I know you do in your work. You talk about carnivore, but and as it relates to mental health, not enough people talk about mindset and overcoming trauma and how it relates to why you may still be dealing with obesity and chronic disease. And I just feel there's such an interconnection with the inner work here that we forget about. The physical body manifests the thoughts we have.
Oh, yeah.
And as I've dove deep into this subject, Emily, and getting into the ACE study, the adverse childhood event study, that all the
Yes.
things during childhood actually lead to direct consequences in your physical health. And yet, what happens when you become an adult after you've been through trauma? Oh, well, it runs in the family. You just pill, right? And then they're, oh, well, that's just bad luck. Here, take this pill, take this, do this procedure, and in mental health cases, they're doing things like shock therapy and really crazy stuff. When all along, we need therapists. We need people willing to talk things through. We need people having a guidebook about how to go deeper, start a personal growth and development journey. I haven't seen it out there. So, it excited me when I thought about this book of, yeah, it's outside my genre of diet and health, but it's still health and it's still going to help people that want to be fully healthy, because if this ain't healthy, it doesn't matter about the rest of the body.
No, not at all. And I love how Brittany talks about, her intentions with her and her husband to want to break this cycle,
Yes.
to recognize that her parents, maybe didn't have all the tools that they need. They were babies themselves,
Yeah.
and so she doesn't sit there and go, "Oh, woe is me. I'm in this bad situation, so I'm just going to stay in this cycle. It runs in the family." No, Brittany and her husband were like, we're stopping this. We're
Yeah.
stopping this cycle. We're starting a new cycle of freedom.
And she and I are best friends, and we talk on the phone quite a bit for like hours at a time. And in the background, I hear the kids, and they'll come in and interact with Brittany. It's amazing how she talks to them, and the lovingness of it. And she's even expressed to me that she's actually jealous that her kids get the lifestyle that she deserved, as she laments, and as you'll read in our book, her story, she laments all the things that she had to deal with, especially starting at 8 years old. She literally became an adult at 8 years old with some of the events.
Yes, that broke my heart. I had no idea that her mother had MS.
Yeah, her mother getting MS was the beginning. And then it went to the other things that you're going to learn about later in the book.
Okay.
And things with her father that she was estranged from until just about 6 or so months ago. She's been
Wow.
estranged from him. Um, yeah, and see, that's the beauty of this journey. That when you go one step deeper, you start to realize why things happen the way they do. And I'm currently estranged from my father, as you'll learn about later in the book as well, with the things that he did to me. And it's unfortunate because now he's got progressive dementia. I just
Mm, yes.
That's coming on, and it's like, even if I wanted some kind of reconciliation with him, he won't know who I am. So do I put myself through that, or do I maintain my peace with my distance? Because they chose the last name, and when I say they, it's not just him, it's the whole kind of Moore side of the family has pretty much not even talked to me for 3 years, um, because of some choices I made in my life. And I'm pegged as the bad guy, kind of like you're pegged in your family as the crazy girl.
Crazy one.
So it's unfortunate that we get those labels, but you know what, Emily? People like you and me and Brittany, we're the breakers of those things, that the trauma bonds, basically, that
Yeah.
generation trauma. And actually, Brittany and I are currently working on a follow-up to this one that will be
Yay.
specifically on trauma. So we're calling it One Step Deeper for Trauma. We hope to have out later this year, but we thought, instead of a trauma book as our first one, let's lay the foundations first, and then we'll do the trauma. I think we've got plans for one on grief, One Step Deeper for grief, and just relationships, on and on and on. We have lots to talk about when it comes to this topic.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And like I said, I what I loved about as I was reading it was I kept thinking about my clients. I kept thinking about, wow, this would be so great if I could get my clients to read this as well. And how can I incorporate this into my work with them? You know, because that's already kind of what I do is I send them out information and then I ask them to respond back to me. And so I was really familiar with that way of doing it. But you guys take it one step deeper. You take it one step deeper than I even do. And I'm just really, really excited about this whole thing. So, you know, what has the feedback been like that you've gotten so far?
Well, what's funny is the book's been out and available for maybe a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks. And so people are going through the book, kind of like you. You're on day number 5. People are like, I'm trying to get through it, but I don't want to rush because
I don't.
every day that I focus on a day, sometimes I go back to the same day again because I didn't fully get everything. And when they read it again, so it's a 40-day journal, but it could take you 60 days to get through it because you're repeating some, especially as you go in the later chapters, you'll see that they are very intense and by design because we're trying to tap into a part of your brain that you probably have never allowed yourself to go to before. Now, you've read the very first entry about grounding yourself in gratitude, like
Yes.
so many things that maybe you don't even know that. Now, you do because you've done work on yourself, but somebody who's never been in this before, the whole concept of grounding yourself in gratitude, that seems so out there and they don't know what that means and they're not grateful.
Well, but I like how they outlined you guys outlined it and said, don't just say I'm grateful for my daughter.
Right.
Say I'm grateful for my daughter came to me for a hug. And
Yes.
so I think that's sometimes what we do is we just try and check the box like, yeah, 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 I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my car. I'm grateful for, you know, but you got to get detailed with it.
Yes, the specificity would be the word. And that's just many years of talking and doing words and stuff. But like I think about people pray that way. Oh, God, I pray for my family and my church and my country. Amen. And it's like, what do you want to pray about? Like that doesn't mean anything unless you're specific about what it is that you're asking for. And it's the same thing with ourselves. How do you know what you're grateful for if you're not like being real, like fine tuned of what that thing is?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like the permission that this book gives me to get detailed. And I almost feel like you want to hear what I think.
Yes.
Like I feel I like as I'm right as I you know all those lines, like I feel like you want me to write this book with you. You know, that you want me to share how I feel.
Yeah. I
And
a co-author at the bottom. In fact, there is a little bit of white space at the bottom. You take a black Sharpie and you write your name on that
I'm
front.
gonna do that. I'm gonna do that.
I would take a picture of that and post it. I would love to, or send it to me. I'd love to see it.
Oh, I'll post it for sure.
Yes.
For sure. And tag you in it. And you know, and I think that it a lot of times people don't open up this area of their life because they feel like when they open up like a little bit, almost like a wound, you
Yeah.
know, it hurts. And so they just want to cover it back up like, no, 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 I don't want to feel this. But what you don't understand is as you go into those deeper layers, the healing that comes is so profound and so worth it. And it almost has to get worse before it gets better.
I liken it to surgery. Surgery, nobody wants to get cut open. And yet sometimes cut open is what's necessary. What happens in the post-op of getting cut open? You're in pain and you got rehabilitation that's painful. You've got a lot of work to do on yourself. Let's talk about like a knee surgery or something. A lot of people get knee surgeries. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of, am I ever going to walk again? And then you're healed. And then you put weight on that foot and you don't feel the knee pain that you used to feel. That's powerful. When you can get to that point from an emotional standpoint, um, there's no denying that that's what you needed to do. But it's in the midst of it that you're like, nope, don't want to bring up old wounds. In fact, one of the things that somebody in Brittany's life does to her often is, well, those are things that happened in the past, talking about her trauma. And she's like, if it's affecting you today, then it's still something that's hurting you and needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
Even look at my own dad, and I can look at him with empathy. Even though he was my abuser, I can look at him with empathy today because he himself, I didn't know this when I was a kid, but he himself was physically beaten by an alcoholic father who berated him, beat the crap out of his mom, my grandmother, and was just really violent with him. So in my dad's eyes, he became a cop. He became this good, noble, upstanding citizen in society. And he only beat his kid and berated his kid behind closed doors. So in his mind, he did better. Often, Emily, I have not had the great fortune of having kids in my life, but I always wanted them. But I always think if I had kids in my 20s after my trauma and after
Yeah.
reeling for so long, at least 15 years, reeling after leaving the house of my dad's house, um, I would have beat them. It's not something I'm proud to say, but I'm almost sure I would beat them, or at the very best, berate them.
Because
And
that's what was modeled for you. That's what the definition of a father was for you.
And what's so amazing to me is when you're in the midst of that and you're the victim of it, you're like, oh my gosh, I would never do that. Oh my gosh, I would be better. But you're right. You only do what you know. And it's one reason I'm like, I wish we could have mandatory therapy for everybody come
Yes.
childhood. Because whether you had something as intense as trauma like what Brittany went through, or physical and emotional trauma like Jimmy went through, or whatever your trauma was, um, or you just had difficult circumstances. It doesn't have to be this grand story of, oh my gosh, something super bad happened to me. It could just be you had you had unavailability of parents when you needed them. They didn't know how to communicate well with you. That's trauma too. Like there's not gradations of trauma. Trauma is trauma is trauma. And I think, and especially the last 2 years of life, we've all been through trauma the last 2 years. And so until we recognize that we need help from that, and yes, doing your own personal one step deeper journey is going to help, but get into therapy. Like when I started this journey for myself in earnest 3 years ago, I hired a therapist, was going away on a 6 month sabbatical. And when I went away on the sabbatical, I thought, oh, I'm going away to rest and relax. No, I went away to deal with my trauma and deal with a lot of personal life issues that turned my life totally upside down, which is why I now have such a passion for this topic. It's why the diet stuff, it's been cool and all, but sayonara. I want to talk about things that are more meaningful. Look, cut your carbs and eat more meat and eat real food. That's the message of carnivore keto. Now, let's go to the mindset stuff.
Yeah. And why are you addicted to sugar and processed foods? And why are you trying to comfort yourself with food?
That's right.
Well, let's talk about that.
That's right.
And I would encourage anybody who's like, I know I need therapy, but I'm not there yet, or I'm read this book.
Yes.
This can be you just starting that process, because this is the kind of stuff I would talk to people about in sessions, to really help them to reframe their thinking,
Yes.
and their mindset. If you're not going to go get a therapist, go get this book and start doing your own work. Yes, one step deeper journal. And how can they find that? They can just Google it on Amazon
Well, it
and
is on Amazon, but onestepdeeperjournal.com is a real fancy schmancy way to get there. And we've got clickable links to the Amazon. It's in Kindle. And then this is the hardback version. In fact, I've got big boxes of them here. I should send you a copy of the hardback if you'd like one.
oh, absolutely, I would love one. But I'm loving this. I mean, I'm loving the PDF form. Printing it out and writing on it, and underlining. It's so good.
You need a copy.
Um,
I'll send you one. Send me your address when we're done, and we'll take care of that.
all right, not a problem, not a problem. We'll do. Um, but and I really think that it is totally connected to your health because if your mind is not right, and if you are overcoming the trauma from childhood or even relational trauma. I
Yes.
mean, you could even talk about your ex, um, and still get completely triggered by that. That's why we get caught in these cycles of knowing what to do to be healthy and not doing it because we self sabotage because we feel like we're not worthy.
Yeah, and it's an unfortunate thing that this has such a stigma in society as well. Well, if you have mental health issues, then it's kind of taboo. But although I think that's changing, I think the events of the last 2 years has brought on a lot more. I'm sure you see it in your clients, and I know my therapist. I had her all the way until like October last year, and she's like, "You don't need me anymore. You're good." So that was a cool thing to hear from her, that I had graduated from that
There
and
you go.
place. I still have my moments, but we all do. But I know how to manage them now. Was it cognitive behavioral therapy has been a game changer for me personally. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but CBT has been wonderful of reframing these situations that I used to go down the rabbit hole of and I don't do that anymore. So, but yeah, I hope that our book demystifies what it means to go on a mental health journey and go down the vulnerable path. Like this is something Brittany and I will be so happy if people start being more vulnerable with themselves, because look, how are you supposed to open up to other people in your life and have solid, strong relationships in family, in friendships? Like my friendship with Brittany is about as strong a relationship as I have in my life right now, and that's not by accident. We're both deliberate about listening. And look, she's a millennial, like a young millennial. I'm a middle of the road Gen Xer. We're not supposed to be getting along. She's 20 years younger than me, but we're like two peas in a pod as friends. And it's because we both recognize each other and our differences, and we're bonded by a genuine mutual respect for one another, care for one another, and we're genuinely interested in each other's lives and what we're going through. And she helped me through a very difficult time in my life 3 years ago, and then she went through something about 2.5 years ago, a big medical emergency that almost killed her. And I've been there for her through all of that, and all the mind stuff that happened to her after that happened. Yeah, it's a big story. And again, I wish she was here. And yes, please get her on because she'll have a whole nother spin on this for you.
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. And I feel like I know her already, I'll really feel like that when I finish the book.
You listen to our podcast? Have you listened to One Step Deeper podcasts yet?
Yeah, I've listened to clips of it. I don't watch like on a regular basis. But every time that I've heard her speak or whenever she posts, because I follow her, I just feel like so connected to her.
As a 29-year-old, she impresses me so much. Now, I try to avoid the look what your trauma grew you up. I'm not going to do that to her because I don't,
Yeah, that gaslighting.
it's hard. And I would never do that to her. Although people say, you act so mature for your age. She's like, bitch, I went through some stuff in my life. That's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, she thinks deeply, she feels deeply, and she's very hard on herself on a lot of things, but like it makes her her. And the cool thing is I know all those things about her, just as she knows all of Jimmy's little things that makes me me. And yeah, it was funny because she got enamored by me the first time we met, because we met through, I think she posted a picture of the Complete Guide to Fasting on her stories, and she tagged me and she said, hey, great book I'm reading. And so I do this a lot. I just reached out and I said, hey, if you ever have any questions about fasting, I'm happy to help. She's like, yeah, I got a bunch of questions. I'm like, well, here's my number. Call me. I do that all the time for people, all the time. And she's like, oh my God, Jimmy Moore. And now she's like, yeah, it's just Jimmy.
Uh,
And it's great.
that's great. That's great. Well, and I connected with her and it just felt very like real, but that's the way I felt with you. I mean, from day one when I first talked to you, I was like, "Oh, it's just Jimmy." Like Jimmy is my people. And I'm so excited about this book. I'm so excited that not only this book, but what this book is going to bring out of people. Because this isn't just a book like about health where you gain information. This is a book where you're building a better person. So, oh my gosh, how much more profound and is the extent of the reach on something like that?
Yes, and one of the ideas, as Brittany and I had been talking about the book, is people would get a copy, and of course, this is a unique copy for you. This is not the kind of book you buy and then you pass it on to somebody because it's going to have all your information
No,
on it.
it's mine.
So, and yeah, and putting your name at the bottom definitely will do that. But we had this idea, Emily, that you would put, open up the book and you would put the date in there and then do it again in 6 months.
Ooh,
And so get another one, get the exact same book, but then do it again just as slow as you did the first time, and then go back and compare the answers from when you started. And if you've never been on a journey before of personal growth, and then 6 months in, after you've already been mulling all these things, and how do you feel? Things are going to change. It's kind of an interesting thought experiment that this is not a one and done, 40 days, that was fun, next. And then, no, it's 40 days, but it's forever.
yeah. And then to, do it like you do your blood work, you know,
Yeah,
you compare your results from your blood work 6 months ago to today.
yeah.
Like how awesome would it to be to compare your one step deeper journal from 6 months ago versus today?
Think of it like a mental health diary, really.
Yeah.
At this point, you've never expressed what's going on in your head about things and what you believe and why you believe things, and how have you challenged yourself on those things that you believe that you don't really believe. There's so many complexities to this that should be exciting for people, and I want people to go into something like this expectant that amazing things are going to happen. Like, my life today, Emily, is so radically different than it was just 3 years ago. Three
Yeah.
years ago, what is this, May? 3 years ago, I was winding down my work, getting ready to go away on 6 months of sabbatical. I was burnout in the work. I was not feeling my best. I couldn't really put my finger on, but something felt off and wrong. And then I go away on sabbatical and I'm like, oh, now I know what's off and wrong because I was covering up a lot of the pain that I was dealing with work. I wrote 7 books in 7 years with that publisher. And look, I'm glad and very proud of all those books that I wrote, but people got to know that was a trauma coping mechanism.
Oh yeah.
And yes, I channeled it into something good, but in the end, I was running, and I didn't really know what I was running from. That's the hard part is people get caught up in their life, and they get caught up in these coping mechanisms, unbeknownst to them. They're just like, "Well, I'm a hard worker." No, you are hurting, and you're running. And when you don't recognize the coping mechanisms, they continue because you don't know that you got to cope from something that you don't know that you need to be coping from. Like, it's such a weird dichotomy when you allow yourself to kind of go down the rabbit hole of why do you do the things you do? Why do you believe the things you believe? Why are you who you are? And when you ask these existential questions, you kind of go, because it's how I've always been. Like, people don't know.
Mm-mm, no. And it's really interesting because the work that I do I transform people's lives.
Yeah,
And so when they start out with me, a lot of times they're just in just desperation. And then whenever I get to week 8, the whole week 8 is about, okay, how do I live a healthy life? What do I do now? Because whenever I became healthy, all I had was my experience with mental illness. And
Yes.
so that's all I knew, was to be a crazy bipolar person. And so my interactions with my family were crazy bipolar interactions. The way that I parented was crazy bipolar, experiences. And so I had to relearn that. And so I was basically in survival mode for all of my life.
Yes.
And so now that everything is clear, everything is calm, it doesn't mean that I magically have all the skills that I need to have. It's still a work that I have to have. And that's why I'm so excited about just going through this book for myself. But also incorporating that for my clients, to know that we can learn how to be healthy people mentally and physically and emotionally.
And once you go down that rabbit hole, you never turn back. Like I think about where I'm at now in my life. I'm a single guy. I lost my publisher because they went from keto to vegan while the pandemic happened. I know, so weird, the publisher I was with. So I'm self-publishing books now. So I'm like changing that. And I recently announced that I'm kind of getting tired of the diet world and I want to talk more about like mindset and mental health. So I have a new brand, Mind Matters More, Moore.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes, I knew that'd be right up your alley. Mind matters more. And it's a play on word because the mind matters, and I'm Jimmy Moore, of course, or mind matters. The mind matters. And then
Mm-hmm.
podcast producer said, well, mind is also a verb. And I was like, oh, mind the things that matter. Oh, wow. Like, so there's like triple entendre there.
Wow. And I totally believe mind over body.
Yes, because if the mind is right, the body's going to follow.
Yep.
Very rare that the body dictates what the mind does. Your body, you can lose weight, you can get things to get healthy. That doesn't always change the mind. Like carnivore is very powerful for helping with mental health things, but it ain't necessarily the grand be all end all. But if you get the mind right, then that carnivore diet will work better for you in your physical health.
Well, and like I don't remember if it was day 5. I don't remember what day it was. But where you said do the things that light you up.
Yes,
Do the things that bring your passion, because then that is where um the inspiration comes from.
yes. That was day 5, by the way.
Was it day 5? I thought so.
Or day 4, day 4.
Day 4.
Don't
Yes,
passions of your heart.
exactly.
Yes, yes. You did read our book. Thank you.
I did. I was so excited when I got it and when you wanted to reach out, and talk about this, because not, I mean, for me, yes, for me, definitely, but for so many other people, because Jimmy, have so many people that reach out to me that are miserable,
Yes.
just miserable. And it's almost like they're stuck in their trauma. And so I love that I can just hand them a link to this book and say, start here. Start here. If you can't sign up with me, if you can't reach out to me, or you can't go find another therapist or somebody else or whatever, start here. You can start in your own bedroom, in your own private little way, with your own little wounds, and you can start nurturing yourself. It doesn't matter that your parents didn't nurture you. You get to nurture yourself. You get to break that cycle.
And Brittany and I did an episode of the One Step Deeper podcast about reparenting yourself. That's a
Ooh,
big, I know, in your world as well, that if you didn't get the parents you needed, be your own parent now.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, we thank you again because we do want people, and we say it very clearly at the front matter of the book. Go seek out a therapist because it will help you as you go through this. But then as a therapist, you're helping them to be able to help you. Because if you're already getting into a going deeper, being vulnerable with yourself and with your therapist, then they're going to be able to help you so much better. Like, again, that was one of the things my therapist said was, you're on a higher emotional health level than most people I talk to. And I'm like, because I'm putting in the work in myself and it
Yeah.
matter.
One of my favorite lines is right there at the beginning. It says, "You are in a safe place now where you can be seen and heard from people who understand what you've been through and want to help you because the best help you become the best version of who you are." Sorry, I butchered that.
That's right. That was Brittany's.
But honestly, like the fact that and that's how I feel when I'm reading this is that I am being seen and heard. And I think that's what is so transformational in anybody's journey is to be seen and heard because whenever we go through trauma and we're abused in certain situations, we don't feel seen and heard. We don't feel understood. And even as I write my entry into each of these days, I feel like I'm being seen and heard.
And think about it too, because I know people sometimes say when you have a grief with somebody, write a letter, but then burn it or whatever. I feel like the entries in this book is you writing that letter to yourself, that you
Mm,
always needed to say things and you weren't allowed to. And like for Brittany, she was never allowed to testify against her sexual abuser. They wouldn't let her testify because she was 15 years old, and her mom and her grandmom said no, it'd be too traumatic for her. And so he got off. He never got any jail sentence and nothing. He had a restraining order. That was about it. And so for her, she feels like this is her finally getting to testify and tell her.
yeah.
And she's like, and I don't give two fucks if he reads my book now because he needs to know how I felt about what he did. And I love it. I love that this is giving a voice for you, Emily. That really warms my heart that you feel, and not like you needed this, but it's great. It's great to
We
see.
all need it. Are you kidding me?
Right. But what I mean is, you do a lot of this work already. It's that new person that may be hesitant, even reading You're Safe and You Have Permission. They're still like, are you sure? Because like
Mm,
fault mechanism in their head is saying, you're not allowed. Listen, listen, guys, you're allowed.
yep. And you're safe
Yep.
and you are seen and you are heard and you are cared for. My favorite thing is whenever I get on a call with somebody and I've never met them before and they're like, I feel like I know you.
Yes.
And I'm just like, good, then I'm doing my job because you need to be known. You need to be known.
And this is why you and I are friends. This is why from the beginning. I felt that about you. And look, I interviewed you on my podcast about carnivore, but it was more than that.
Oh, yeah.
It was all the things that encompass. It's so funny when you go one step deeper, you recognize people that have gone one step deeper. You see them. This is why Brittany and I bonded. I wasn't quite as far along as she was when we first met. And I'm still not to her level because she's next level, one step deeper. She's kind of gotten me into this. And I'm glad because this is the path that I think all those years in the diet world were meant for. Like it was training ground, and I did great work in the keto space, and I'm happy about all that I've done. But I feel like my greatest work is going to be in this area because it's so sorely needed, and this will be a need for many moons to come.
The best is yet to come.
Yep, yep.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jimmy.
Thank.
Thank you so much for reaching out to me and for sharing this book with me. And thank you just for writing it. I'm so excited to see what comes from all of this.
Well, I got a book ready to sign and autograph and send to you in the mail today. So make sure you send me your mailing address. But yeah, everybody else can go get one. One Step Deeper Journal.com is the website for the book. And go check it out. And our podcast, One Step Deeper Podcast.com. It's on video, which watch the video because Brittany and I have a great dynamic on camera because we're best friends. And so I'll jab at her, she'll jab at me. It's fun. It debuts on Sundays at 4 p.m. on YouTube. So if you type in a keyword "One Step Deeper," you'll find our show that way. And then it airs in a traditional podcast format on Mondays. You can listen to it on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Alexa, all the ways.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'm excited to go through this book with you.
Thank you, Emily, and I really appreciate all the feedback. And thank you guys for watching. It's always a pleasure to connect with other people's audiences.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye, sweetie.